Thank you all for joining. Today's webinar will be Schools Off the Beaten Track, Beyond the Big Name Schools. Today's presenter is Katie Charles, who is a fabulous counselor at Great Expectations College Prep. Just for some background on Katie, prior to her 11 years at GE College Prep, Katie worked in college admissions and athletics at multiple colleges around the country, including Dartmouth and the University of Georgia. She also coached at the collegiate level, ranging from Division I to Division III schools, and continues to help students with college counseling and the athletic recruitment process. So I will let Katie take it away.
Well, good evening, everyone. Amanda, thank you so much for that lovely entry. Um, I'm excited to have this conversation tonight. This is one of my favorite presentations that I have the opportunity to do here with Great Expectations. And tonight we're going to talk a little bit about some schools you might never have heard of. This is an opportunity for our staff to highlight schools we find interesting, programs that we want students to know about, and really help us think outside the box when it comes to the college process. For a lot of students, the first place that they start is schools that they've heard of. Big name schools, they know somebody who went there. Our goal tonight is to introduce everyone to some schools around the country. We're going to go region by region to talk a little bit and highlight a couple of schools in each region, why they're unique, the types of programs you can find, and to kind of dispel the myth that the small colleges don't have a broad range of offerings and may not have the same level of academics or program functionality that a large school does. I think you're going to be surprised to hear some of the things that the small colleges are offering and things that are incredibly specific. So if your student has things in mind that they're really excited about, we want them to have an opportunity to explore all of those things, and these smaller colleges can give them that opportunity. So we're going to start a little bit with, this is my favorite map to show any family or student. Obviously, I'm currently based in Southern California. I grew up in Pennsylvania. So where I grew up, you can see over here on the right-hand side of the screen, there are a lot of colleges in a very small amount of space. But as we get to the Mississippi River, we start to lose a little bit of the college distribution. And from the Mississippi River west, it becomes significantly less populated with students or with colleges. We see a lot of land grant state universities out west of the Mississippi, but outside of that, it becomes a much smaller selection of different styles of schools. And so when we talk about this, right now, more than 75% of the colleges in the US are east of the Rockies. And so when we're looking at this, it's not just large schools, it's not just schools you can name. There are hundreds of small colleges scattered throughout the entirety of the east and central portion of the country. And even for a lot of people here along the West Coast, you can see there's another set of different schools that are all kind of linked together. There's tons of small colleges and medium-sized colleges that are going to give us a little bit of everything. And we genuinely want all of our students to have this opportunity to learn a little bit about the different locations, the different styles of schools, and the things that we're going to be looking for here. Okay. There are hundreds of small colleges and universities throughout the country. So, for every large land grant state university, so your institutional work or, you know, in Wisconsin, where a lot of you are located that are watching this, you have the University of Wisconsin system, and those are larger schools in the 5 to 25,000 student range. Whereas most of our colleges in the country are under 10,000 students. And so when we talk about that, we want them to really get a good feel for what they're looking for, what offers the coursework they're looking for, the differentiation in different potential majors, and schools that are going to offer you some unique perspectives outside of those general large schools. Okay. As we go through this, another big piece that we see that a lot of colleges and families in particular right now are concerned about is the cost of college. And the first thing that pops up when we start taking a look at some of these smaller colleges is the price tag. And when we're looking at this for a lot of our students, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later in the presentation, when we're taking account of the cost that's going to be associated with college, we want to look at what each college is offering. Some of these private schools are able to offer more scholarship and more merit and need-based financial aid than a state school is. For a lot of state schools, they're only going to take into account whatever the federal government says that you can afford, and then from there you'd have to take out loans. Whereas smaller colleges often will take into account additional items. They'll use a secondary set of information like the CSS profile to try to help families be able to afford college. Because for a lot of these small schools, if they didn't do that, they wouldn't be able to exist. They have to get their costs in line with what a state school is. So you'll be surprised to see that they can make it affordable to go to some of these smaller colleges, despite the fact that their price on the initial website might look a lot higher than your average college. And the next piece is how do you even find these places? So, when we're talking with students, where I like to go first is how do you find schools that are a good fit and what are we looking for? And within that, we want to start with kind of the big scope of life, things that we're looking for. Like, what part of the country do you want to be in? For a lot of college students or students considering college, a lot of them start out with, I think I'd either like to stay relatively close to home, so they want to explore within a couple of hours, but the comfort and the familiarity is something they're looking for. The second set of kids we have is please get me as far away from home as earthly possible. And for those students, there's a lot of things that they need to consider when we're taking a look at this. And even for ones that want to stay close to home, there are a multitude of different types of colleges, styles of campuses, architectural styles, things that we are looking for. Do you want an urban campus? So the example I always use with this is a lot of students will ask us about like, what about a true urban campus? What am I looking at? So the example I generally use is, have you ever been to NYU? And did you know you were there? So if you've been to New York City, you could be walking around for 20 minutes in the general area of NYU without realizing you're on campus. The only thing that you're going to see that differentiates the school from the city is banners hanging up around the buildings that show NYU. And for a lot of students, they love it. The city is exactly what they're looking for. But for many students, they're like, you know what, I want it to feel like a campus. If there's not like a central green space or something else that you can take a look at, it doesn't feel quite like a college experience. It just feels like you're living in the city. Okay. What about suburban campuses? Those are ones where you really feel like there is a campus there, but you're still close enough to a city that you have access to all the amenities and things that you might be looking for, or a genuine college town feel. Okay. There's a lot of schools out there that are very much the college is there and the town around it exists because the college is there. And that's a very different feel when we're taking a look at, what you might be interested in and what you're looking for. Because there, the student experience is going to be a big piece of what drives the town that you're in. And it's a really cool. So this one, whenever I'm using examples for what I would consider a college town, something like Penn State in State College, Pennsylvania. Okay. Suburban campus, that's usually what we think of when we talk about Wisconsin-Madison, which for most of you might be close to home. The city is there, but you can still tell that you are on campus and it's differentiated from what you're looking at. What about truly rural campuses where you're driving out into middle of no land's land and there's the campus? There's quite a few of those. And we're going to highlight a couple throughout this presentation that are genuinely beautiful campuses that you would just the college is what is there, and there isn't necessarily a town around it. But the college is very insular. It is a wonderful experience for students who really want to be immersed in their campus life without outside distractions. The next thing we're going to talk about with students is what's going to be important in your college experience. Are you looking for Greek life? Are you excited about a specific major? Are you looking to study abroad? When we're talking about these things, we're looking for what colleges are going to do to support the pieces of your college experience that you're most excited about. And that goes with what do I want to do outside the classroom? When you get to college coming from high school, you're only going to be in class maybe 3 to 5 hours a day. And the rest of that time, how are you filling your time? Are you getting involved in campus activities? Are you going to explore the city that you live in? Are you someone who wants to go to museums or go see, musical performances? What is available to the student and what gets them excited about their experience outside of the classroom specifically? As of right now, we know a significant number of students are going to change their major at least once from what they write on their college application to what they ultimately end up majoring in. And so when we talk to students, it doesn't necessarily have to be about a specific program unless they are 100% sure that they want to be involved in, engineering or interior design or something that is an incredibly specific program. Outside of that, we want to see what else you might be excited about and the things that you want to be involved in on campus. This one is what I started to hinge on earlier, is talking to students about the difference between the sticker price of a college and then what we call the discount rate. And for families, this is a big piece of the college process right now, going and taking a look at what percentage of incoming students receive some form of financial aid, and then what the average student is paying to be there. The small colleges, as I said, would not survive if they couldn't get their costs at least relatively in line with what a state school would cost. And whether it's in school, in state or out of state for a private school, doesn't matter. They are going to be discounting to try to get close to what their in-state school systems are going to cost. Okay. And so when you go through that, the other piece that a lot of schools don't tell you, but the small colleges do a really nice job with is financial aid is also negotiable. So if you get a great financial aid package from one school and just a medium one from the other, but they're comparable schools, you can often take the better package to the school that you want to be at more. And a lot of times they will try to match that package. And so as we go through these things, that's a big piece of what we're looking for here is how do we get you everything that you want? And how do we get that into something that is both affordable and helps our students get where they want to be? Every time we start from this process, we want our students to be excited about what they're looking for. And we want them to go into college genuinely thoughtful about where they want to ultimately end up. For a lot of schools and for a lot of students, particularly right now with students that are looking at STEM majors or trying to get into that style of programs, there are a lot of specialized programs out there, programs that will get you to accelerated master's degrees that might get you, 3 years in your undergrad, 2 years in a grad program. Okay. When we're talking about academic considerations, we're also looking for things like, okay, how big of a class am I comfortable sitting in? And what am I looking for in terms of a campus feel? For most students coming out of high school, you might never have been in class with more than 30 to 40 students. And that's on the high end, even coming from like larger public schools. When you get to college, if you're going to a school with more than probably 10,000 students, your average class size in your first year of school is going to be close to 200 plus students. And as you go through that, are you the type of student that's going to thrive in that environment? Are you great at taking notes and sitting in on lectures and really taking them in? Or are you a student that would thrive in a more personalized classroom setting with a smaller number of students and more direct interaction with your professors and people on campus? Okay. What is the student to teacher ratio, and how about the accessibility of your professors? At small colleges, very often you're going to have professors with terminal degrees in their fields actually teaching the classes. A big piece of that is going to be because they are not required to do significant outside research. At a larger institution, a lot of those professors are also handling research, overseeing teaching assistants. They're doing a significantly different job at a large university, whereas at a smaller school, they're very often tasked first with working with undergraduate students and teaching directly. And so for some of that stuff is personally, I always love giving this one because I went to one of these small colleges, and we're going to highlight it later. My alma mater did make the list. But as we go through this, I loved the fact that I could walk into any professor's office and they knew who I was because my classes were small enough that my professors recognized me. I'm still currently in an NCAA basketball pool with my English professor from college. There are a whole bunch of students that she's kept in touch with over the years, and that's the kind of relationship that we have at a smaller school where you're actually going to have more one-on-one time with your professors. Okay. What about your long-term plans? Where do you eventually want to end up? For a student that may want to go into engineering or maybe wanting to go into the medical field, where do the schools that they're hoping to ultimately do their upper level work at, where are they drawing students from? And you'll be surprised to see many of them draw from the smaller colleges because those students have had a very different undergraduate experience. Does the school that you have connections to the field you want to be in? And we're going to highlight some really cool differentiated experiences at a variety of schools and then how they have connections in the fields and the things that we're going to be looking for. So as we go through, we're going to head into the different regions and start highlighting schools here in just a minute. But as we kind of go through this, we're looking for overall what is the best environment to help a student thrive? Is it a particular major? Is it a location? Is it going to be some combination of all of these things? And what are you thinking about and how are we considering these schools and programs in order to get you to the place that makes the most sense? All right, we get to the fun part now. I get to start highlighting some of these schools. And we're going to start, like I said, region by region, and we're going to work our way across the US, starting with the Northeast region. And this one is really fun. There are 75 colleges within a 75-mile radius of the city of Boston. The number of students up in the Northeast is significantly higher than almost any other region in the country. And that's because, one, obviously, since our country was founded up there and the first settlers started there, a lot of the schools started earlier than anywhere else in the country. But this is a big one, is there are a ton of schools up there because education being genuinely important, and they had the opportunity to start those schools significantly earlier. So we're going to not hit the kind of big name ones here. This is where we're going to start with the fun stuff. And the first school I want to highlight is a school called Endicott College. And the picture on the right is their campus. They sit directly on the water, about 20 miles north of the city of Boston. They are directly across the harbor from Salem, Massachusetts. So if you're really into witches and history and all of that, it's a really fun campus because around Halloween it gets very festive up in that area. You get to learn a lot, historical about the Salem witch trials. It's right across from there, and there's a lot of events on campus that go with the history of the area. Okay. Endicott is really interesting because despite being a school that only has about 3,000 students, so generally smaller than most, they have doubled in size since 2003, but still are only about a population of 3,000 students. They offer both undergraduate and master's programs and have quite a few very specialized programs. One of the misnomers we're definitely going to be dispelling during this is, it's a liberal arts college. It doesn't have, you know, some of the more business-based programs or science-based programs, or it's not as strong. Each of these schools that we're going to be highlighting have incredibly specific programs that they offer that can match up with a large school's offering at any time. At Endicott in particular, they have a couple of really interesting programs. And the first one that they offer is an undergrad bachelor's in nursing. They also offer a master's and all the way through a PhD track. So you can actually start your undergraduate, and at Endicott, it starts with you are in clinicals working at hospitals from your freshman year. They are very much focused on experiential learning and making sure that nursing is the right field for you. So, at a lot of places with a nursing program, you may not actually start going out into clinicals until junior year when you've already declared your major. Whereas at some of the smaller schools, and Endicott in particular, you'll be out doing work at hospitals much earlier. So, you get a really good feel for whether or not this is the major that you want to go into. The other thing that they offer is sports medicine, which is one we don't see at a lot of these smaller schools. They offer what we call a 3-2 program, both in exercise science and in athletic training. So if you think you either want to potentially go into sports medicine or you want to go into athletic training as a profession, they offer a 3-year undergrad plus a 2 years master program. So in 5 years, you've graduated with your master's in your field. As they go through all of this, they also offer direct admission. So you'll do your 3 years undergrad there and then a 2 year direct admit program either on their campus or at one of their affiliate schools. Okay. On campus here, they also have a couple of more unique programs. They offer interior design as a major, which is something we don't see at a ton of schools across the country. There's probably 15 to 20 that offer it as an actual major. The other thing they offer is for students who are interested in entrepreneurship and event management, they actually have an on-campus hotel. So students can work in hospitality and tourism management while they're doing their undergrad work. So you start to see a theme here of experiential learning, and this is going to be a big one. Okay. The second school that I want to highlight in this grouping is Hamilton College. This one is in upstate New York, very close to Colgate University. So if you know the greater New York area, Colgate is kind of up and out there, and Hamilton is in the tiny town of Hamilton, New York, which is really close to where Colgate is located. So you have several sets of colleges that are near each other. So the student population is there, but they would definitely fall under the rural campus. Hamilton has a little bit of a college town, so maybe we'll call it suburban-ish, but out in that area, the colleges are really what drives the area of New York that this is in. Okay. When you get to Hamilton, they are a small private liberal arts school. However, one of their big focuses is in STEM sciences, and they offer a 3-2 dual degree program in engineering, which is something that we don't see a ton of at these smaller colleges, but Hamilton offers it. And their dual degree program runs students to either Columbia or Dartmouth. So you have an opportunity to go to your undergrad at a smaller school and then do your master's degree at either Columbia or Dartmouth in the Ivy League, which is always a genuinely great pathway to get where you want to be. So if you don't necessarily get into one of those very top schools as an undergrad, you might have an opportunity to do your undergrad elsewhere and go there as part of their acceptance program. The third one I want to highlight here is actually a really cool one, Skidmore College, which is in upstate New York. If you've ever watched the movie Dirty Dancing, the campus reminds me a lot of that. It's very much like a old school Pocono style resort town. It is best known for the racetrack that is there, and it became famous in that area for horse racing. But Skidmore actually has one of the top performing arts centers up in that region of the world. Okay. So as we go through this, they offer summer programming. Their students often will do like Shakespeare in the summer in Vermont. There's a ton of that style of program, very arts based. They have They have a performing arts center on campus. They are heavy in the liberal arts. So this one is really fun. It provides a couple of more substantial in the art side than a lot of the other schools do. And their performing arts is renowned across the country. A lot of those students will go on to do masters or to be performing in companies across the country. But on the exact flip side, while they have a high piece of art, their other big major on campus is kinesiology and pre-physical therapy. So they're a school that offers undergrad in preparation for physical therapy degrees, which is something that can often take a long time to do, and you have to have very specific classes. They offer a strong STEM program that prepares students for physical therapy. As we're working our way down, we're going to hit into the central part, and this is the Mid-Atlantic region. And the picture on the right is my alma mater and the first school we're going to talk about, which is Juniata College. One of the biggest reasons that I chose this school, and a lot of students choose it, is because they make it incredibly affordable. I was on a significant academic scholarship, and Juniata has a history of going to bat to provide the best financial aid possible for students. The second reason that I love this school is they have majors and they're a set of requirements for each major, but they're also incredibly open with their curriculum of designing your own major, and they call it a program of emphasis. So as you go through the programs there, if you're a bio major, but you also really like Spanish, you can actually create a dual program for yourself. And as long as you can justify the courses that you're taking, you can earn a dual degree in whatever way you want. I actually, as an undergrad, chose to triple major. My majors were peace and conflict studies, political science, and economics. It is one of the only schools in the country that offers peace and conflict studies as an actual major, which was incredibly interesting for students that might be leaning towards political science. Peace and conflict studies is a nice mixture of understanding current events and how those are impacting conflict around the world, as well as communication and skills to work on mediation and negotiation management. So it's actually a really interesting major. Lots of fun things going on. They also are really strong in environmental science, and they have built an entire campus slightly away from the main campus that sits on over 300,000 acres of protected state park in the state of Pennsylvania. So there is conservation work being done constantly by students, and all of the work is done by undergrads. They only have a very limited number of master's degrees. And so for most of the students, undergrads are taking on the research with their professors and working at hands-on projects all around the country. Okay. Another big piece of this school is they highly encourage study abroad. Nearly 70% of students will spend at least a semester abroad. And so it's one that if you're really into getting out into the world and seeing things in an interdisciplinary study phase, Juniata would be a great place to look. Next up on our list, a little bit closer to humanity, because Juniata is way out there, I will say that much, is Dickinson College. This one is right outside of Harrisburg, the capital of Pennsylvania, in Carlisle. And it is known for not only having a great liberal arts base, but it is one of the strongest schools in the region for engineering programs. Like some of the others we have highlighted, they offer a 3-2 program in engineering with their affiliations. A lot of students going on to study at Columbia, Rensselaer Polytechnic, which is an engineering-based school up in New York, and at Case Western Reserve out in Ohio. Okay. Additionally, they have both undergrad in pre-law and a law school. So oftentimes students will take their undergrad in pre-law and then track directly into their law school. And the law school is substantiated by Penn State. So while it stays in the smaller class size, it is considered the law school that Penn State uses when they are sending their students out to these things. And the final school on this list is actually, this one goes into the college in the suburban area, but not 100%. So when we use NYU as the in the city, Stevens is often a school that I will give students to go take a look at that is a little bit different than that. They are in Hoboken, New Jersey. So you get an actual campus, but their campus sits directly over top of the river looking at Manhattan. So you're a 10-minute path ride away from the city, but you get the benefit of a much more of a campus feel and a students that are going to be able to work in the city, able to take internships, but that also don't have to live directly in Manhattan. So it's a little bit more of a field. They also will guarantee housing, which is one of the things that NYU does not do. So when we're taking a look at New York style schools, Stevens is a really good alternative. They are known for having one of the highest starting salaries of any graduates in the country. And similar to some of the larger schools, one of the hallmarks at Stevens is that they offer a 5-year co-op program. So you can take a year of paid internship or work through the school as a year of learning, and then you can come back and finish your degree. A couple of other schools that do that, like Northeastern up in Boston, is also a big proponent of that co-op year. Stevens has been doing it, and a decent number of students, despite the fact that they're considered a technology school, will work in business and finance in New York City. So they will take a year interning with some of the major trading firms in New York and banks, and then they will end up with a job upon graduation, which is obviously the key to all of this. So when we're talking about all these things, Stevens has done a great job of setting up their students for success long term. As we move our way down, we get a little bit more sparse in the small school, but we're going to highlight a couple schools in some of the more interesting and exciting areas recently. Okay. We're going to start it off with Rhodes. Rhodes College is in Memphis, Tennessee, and a lot of students seem to be leaning towards the South. I hear a lot of students looking at Nashville, Knoxville, Memphis for schools. Rhodes is a really great small college that is made a name for itself by being one of the more selective in the state of Tennessee. Okay. They have excellent programs, particularly in business administration. English language and literature is another big one. And despite being relatively landlocked and in Tennessee, they are really heavy into international relations and affairs. A lot of their students will study abroad. And Memphis is obviously a city that is, and Tennessee in general, has been a pretty strong destination for a lot of students. So we have a lot of students who are looking at, say, Vanderbilt, which is a very high, very strenuous to get into. Rhodes College is a solidly selective school in a similar academic vein and in the same area. So it's worth taking a look at it if you really love the state of Tennessee and you're interested in something along those lines. Next school on here is just outside of Atlanta in Mount Berry, Georgia. This is Berry College. And the picture on the right is actually their campus. They have been named one of the most beautiful campuses in the world. Um, Consistently for probably the last 15 to 20 years. The campus itself is very old South feel, bluestone, so similar to like a James Madison University or Virginia Tech, but slightly smaller class sizes and a little bit more encapsulated. You see that the most of their buildings are set up around this central pond that they have on campus. It is absolutely stunning. And I will say, from a major's perspective, this school is one of the very few undergrad animal science and zoology specific programs. Oftentimes, that's not a major we see until we are looking at graduate school or master's programs, but they actually offer it with a pre-veterinary focus. So a significant number of students that come through either in their biological sciences or in their animal science and zoology will go and track into veterinary school if you're done. So if you are interested in that, they have a great feeder school into all of the top veterinary programs. So Berry College would definitely be worth a look there. Not to mention it's very pretty. And you are only an hour or so outside of Atlanta, not counting for traffic, because that's always a bit of an issue. But Mount Berry is accessible to the city of Atlanta while also still feeling like a college town nestled up in the mountains of Georgia. The third one I have on here, and this one is very, always joke, it's very Old South. Washington and Lee is in Virginia. They're in Lexington, obviously famous for its Civil War battles. But the one thing that we love about Washington and Lee is they have consistently been one of the top schools in the region academically, as they compete almost directly with UVA for students when it comes down to what we're doing academically. So, top end public school, Washington and Lee is a top end private school. It is actually divided into 3 schools. They have the college, which is where all their liberal arts courses are held and all of the majors. They have the Williams School of Economics, Commerce, and Politics. They are incredibly active in political science, in international relations. They offer a semester where you can actually work in Washington, D.C. So if you're genuinely interested in going into politics, Washington and Lee is a great place to start. And then they have a third school, which is graduate program only, but they have a law school there, which is well renowned throughout the country and includes, if you want to do your undergraduate there, a lot of their students will then do their law degrees at Washington and Lee. And it is highly sought after as one of the top law schools in the region. And so when we're talking to students about this, if they genuinely are interested in going into something that, you know, would go along political science, if we're looking at potentially wanting to go into law school, which you could need for being in political science, Washington and Lee is one of the best places to get an all-encompassing undergraduate and a law school degree, and then still have the connections. This school places a ton of students into Washington, D.C., and into politics in general. And so, as we're taking a look at this, if that's ultimately your goal, it's a school that absolutely should be on your list. We're moving our way across here, so we're getting a little closer to the central part of the country. The first school on this list is Kenyon College, and this one is in Ohio, about 45 minutes to an hour outside of Columbus. So if you're looking for a place that you can get to at a reasonably decent clip, you can fly into the Columbus airport and drive up, and it takes less than an hour. It would definitely fall under the rural, but similar to Berry College, it has consistently been rated as one of the most beautiful campuses in the country. It is incredibly well known. There are a ton of famous actors and actresses that have gone to their undergrad here. They have a wonderful program in both theater and acting, heavy on musical performance. And this is a school that really prides itself on that. But for most of those students, that isn't their major. There's a strong undergrad in English, in writing. They have an on-campus literary magazine that is nationally renowned. And so for students that are interested in writing or want to go into literature of some variety, Kenyon would be an excellent fit because they are tailored towards their students are the ones that manage their renowned literary journal. So it's not the professors, it is a student-run organization and one of the few that still offers only student undergrad for that one. Next one, a little closer to our Minnesota or Wisconsin crew here in Minnesota is Macalester. So if you're looking for something that's more in a city or at least city adjacent, Macalester is in St. Paul. So we got a large student population with the University of Minnesota, Twin Cities right there. But Macalester is a smaller private school that offers their biggest thing on campus is about community-based and civic engagement. So this is a campus that requires you to do community service outside of your undergraduate degree. They have a major in human rights and humanitarianism, and have a very strong set of programming in things like international development, international studies, and they highly encourage students, similar to Juniata, to study abroad, where nearly 70% of their students spend at least some time abroad during their college days. So if that's something that you're looking for, this school is a fantastic option when it comes to, if you want to go abroad, you want to spend a semester or a year somewhere, because they do offer full year programs. This would be a school that is really worth looking into because they have that. If you are the type of student who genuinely enjoys community service, or you want to be involved at a grassroots level with organizations, it is one of the things that this campus, this school in particular, likes to highlight about their undergraduate experiences. It is a requirement, and they want all of their students to be involved in the greater Minneapolis area. And my third one on this list is kind of an outlier, but we start to get into where you can find some of those science-based programs. Morehead State University in Morehead, Kentucky makes this list because they are super heavy in astrophysics and aeronautical sciences. They have a NASA lab on campus, and they actually launch rockets from Eastern Kentucky, which is where this is located. And so, if you have a student that wants to go into engineering, wants to go into aeronautics, interested in going into astrophysics of some kind, rather than maybe duking it out at some schools that have incredibly low admissions rates, what we're looking at is a school that offers hands-on experiential learning. I just had a student that graduated from there and she got an internship with NASA directly from the program. She had already launched her first space rover before she graduated from Morehead. And so it's a school that for students who are interested in that kind of hands-on experience-focused work, this is exactly the kind of school you should be looking at. And we're going to highlight a few more that also include the astrophysics as we go. Moving across, we have some of my favorite schools on this list. The first one up here is Colorado College. And this school makes the list because it has one of the most unique academic programs in the country. They offer a block schedule. So you actually take each class, you take 5 classes per semester, 3 weeks at a time. So if you're taking US history, you have it every single day for 3 weeks. You take your exam and you move on to your next class. For students that really love an intense learning environment, Colorado College is a great place to be. They offer a January term. So if you wanted to do something like, hey, I want to take my arts credit and study, you know, paintings in Italy, you can actually go abroad for 3 weeks and take your class there with one of the professors from Colorado or with the short January term program that gets students out and able to see the world a little bit and take a class that's specific and counts for credit. So when Colorado College puts all of this stuff out there, they're down in Colorado Springs. They are a small campus, but they also offer a significant amount of other colleges around them. So the vibe for students, not quite as similar as Boston, but you also have the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, and the Air Force Academy. So you get a really broad range of students in the area, and you can really get a great feel for student life there. Kind of a quirky mountain town, very outdoorsy. So for students who like access to skiing, they're interested in outdoor activities. Colorado College is an excellent option as kind of a complement to something like Colorado Boulder, which is a much bigger campus, but in the same general area. Next up on our list, as we get into Iowa, and I will say this is one that I actually had to learn about as I became a college counselor, because for me, when I think of Iowa, I think of Iowa, Iowa State, and Northern Iowa. Those are your three big land grant. But Grinnell College is a small private school that offers some really unique and interesting programming. They're a very open curriculum. And so they have a foundational set of classes that you're required to take. And on top of that, students have that same ability to design a major or to qualify a program based on what they're most interested in. Along with that, they offer 3-2 engineering programs. Again, partnered with Columbia, with Caltech, which we're going to get to a little bit later in here in terms of why it's unique. RPI, Rensselaer Polytech, that we talked about earlier, and Washington University in St. Louis, which is another one of the top end of the engineering schools. Similar to Juniata, as I talked about earlier, they offer peace and conflict studies as a major. We start to see a theme here. There's a couple of schools that offer it. Generally speaking, they were religious schools that are no longer religiously affiliated, but kept some of those programs that were most interesting to their students. Okay. They do offer a cooperative master's program in public health with the University of Iowa. So if a student is interested in going through it, they would go undergrad in one of the sciences and then can go into public health as a master's program at the University of Iowa with a direct admit. And our final one on this list is kind of fun because we get to the state of Texas. And again, this is another state where it's a lot of, I know Texas, UT Austin, I know Texas A&M, but some of the smaller colleges that we can feature down there, Southwestern is a really interesting one. It's in Georgetown, Texas. So more of a college town, but you're only about 25 minutes away from Austin. So it's on the outskirts of Austin, Texas. So you have access to all of the, downtown area, the fun parts of being at UT Austin, but you still get that smaller, more personalized classroom experience. And as we kind of look through all of these schools, Southwestern sets itself apart, similar to a couple of the other ones that we talked about, in that they offer exercise sciences and kinesiology for pre-med students. They're also really heavy in business, which is, again, not a major we even see at some of the larger schools, but they offer a business degree specifically for undergrad. They also have speech, communication, and rhetoric, which is a program that used to almost exclusively be at Cal Berkeley, but has now started to branch out into other schools. And the reason that's a big one there is Southwestern also has an associated law school, and it's one of the top in the central part of the country. And their Southwestern Law School loves the undergrads that have done the communication, the rhetoric, so that when they get to law school, they're prepared to make sound, solid, logical arguments. And it also helps that undergraduate in rhetoric and communication can help with your LSAT exam. So as they go through this, big piece of what they're doing is preparing their students for the next step. And Southwestern has a wonderful reputation for getting their students ready to head out into the world. All right, we'll keep cruising right on through here. Up in the Pacific Northwest, we get some of our quirkier colleges that are going to be added to this list. And the first one on this list is Reed. And I sort of joke that this one gets a bad rap for being very out there, but Reed is incredibly unique. It's in Portland. So you get a bit of a I don't want to call it urban because Portland itself is not very urban, but it's a suburban feel that is very ingrained into the city of Portland, which means it's a little bit quirky and a lot of fun. They are a school that requires every student to write a senior thesis. And so you have a culminating project that becomes a big piece of your education, and it's something that you work towards over all 4 years of school. They require all freshmen to take a humanities program. They really want the students to come out of here well-rounded. So whether you are looking at going into a science field, whether you're looking at going into humanities, every student is going to have a strong liberal arts base. They're also very, very big in experiential learning. So if your student wants to go into a science program at Reed, they offer undergraduate research, internships, study abroad, where you can do your science study overseas, which is something that doesn't happen at a lot of schools. Very often the science credits will not transfer back, whereas at Reed, they allow students to actually take some of their science classes while they're overseas and have them count towards their major. Um, they have requires on top of their senior thesis, you have to do an oral exam and argument for graduation. So they're making sure the students are prepared to go out in the world and speak their mind and do it clearly and concisely and with knowledge in their background. As we're moving on, Puget Sound is the next school on our list. And this one, for students who might be considering, like, hey, I want to go to the University of Washington and their Seattle campus, which out of state is actually incredibly difficult to get into. When you go through all of this, the University of Puget Sound, which is in Tacoma, would be a great alternative option to applying to the University of Washington or as a backup school to UW if you're looking for it. Okay. They are known as one of the schools that has the strongest set of undergraduate academic support. So they are great for students who maybe have some learning differences. They have been test blind for as long as I can remember, long before it became a generalized option during COVID. Puget Sound has always been test blind or and has made sure that the tests are not a deciding factor in a student's admissions process. So that's something that it would be really good to know. So if your student is a great student, but really is concerned that they're not going to do well on the exams for some of the top schools, it's worth taking a look at the University of Puget Sound. Not only do they make sure that that is not the factor in admissions. They have a ton of support when the student arrives with a very robust tutoring program. Their entire goal is to make sure that their students graduate and are feeling really confident when they leave. Okay. They are huge on experiential learning. That's another big piece of your undergraduate experience at Puget Sound. They want students to go out to work, to do research undergrad. And that's, again, the benefit of some of these smaller schools not having a ton of graduate students is your undergrads are going to be expected to do the same work that a graduate student would, which is fantastic for them. They can get published, they'll have research done, and it makes them more prepared to go out into the workforce because they'll already have experience in the field that they're seeking. Okay. And our final one on this grouping is Willamette University. And this one is kind of fun for students that are really interested in potentially going into government. They are in Salem, Oregon, which is obviously the capital of Oregon, and a lot of their students will do an internship or will work in local politics actually to start while they're still in college. So if your student is really interested in seeing the inner workings of government, this is a good place for them to do it. The thing that actually makes Willamette the most unique is they are the only undergraduate archaeology program uh, west of the Mississippi. And so if your student is big into history, archaeology, if they've been the kid that wants to dig dinosaur bones their whole life, they are one of the very few schools in the country that offers an undergraduate archaeology degree. Okay. Again, with internships, with experiential learning, and with options for study abroad. Okay. The other thing that they do is they offer quite a few accelerated programs. So similar to the 3-2 program, 3 years undergraduate. They offer a Bachelor of Arts with a Juris Doctorate. So for students that want to fast track into law school, they do the same for students who want to fast track to their MBA. So 3 years undergrad, 2 years Masters of Business Administration. And they also offer a Bachelor of Science with a fast track into a Master's in Data Science. So again, for students that are really interested in doing some of those accelerated programs that know they want to go to graduate school, taking a look at a place like Willamette would be a great one. They also offer a 3-2 engineering program, and their partner schools that generally they send students to are USC School of Engineering, Columbia, and WashU in St. Louis. So these are all very top-end schools that the students have a partnership with and the ability to go out and head to as part of their program when they graduate. The accelerated programs are phenomenal, and we've now talked about it at several places. But when you're talking to students who know for sure that they want to go on to, be a lawyer or be a doctor or go into engineering and they're going to need at least a master's degree to work in that field, these 3-2 programs save you a year of tuition and get you out into the field and working a little bit faster than others. And our last group, this is my kind of a fun one for me. One, I live in this area now, so this is always very exciting. And two, because these schools offer some incredibly unique and fun programs. And the first one here is, if you're thinking about Los Angeles, a lot of students in particular who are looking at something like going into film. We have quite a few students who want to go that route these days. And so the first thing on their mind is like, well, USC has a film school and NYU has a film school. But Chapman University's film school has come up in the last 10 to 15 years, and it is actually incredibly strong with great networking once you graduate and a lot of hands-on and experiential learning, which is a really big one for students who want to go into that field so that they have an opportunity to actually work with producers and to get out into the field to do more work in film prior to graduation. They are required to turn in thesis projects, which means they have to create their own film work. And so if you have a student that wants to go that route, but they maybe don't necessarily have the want to go to USC or NYU because those are both incredibly urban campuses. Chapman, which is down in Orange, California. So anybody who's been to Disneyland, this is not too far from there. This would definitely be the place that's very similar to it. You get a little bit more of a suburban feel, much more of a campus vibe. It's surrounded by, more of a suburban area. So you get the same thing that you're looking for in a great film program, but without having to have the urban campus feel. The next one on here, similar to Morehead State, if anybody has ever watched The Big Bang Theory, Caltech is the school that they're talking about. This school has the NASA Jet Propulsion Lab. It is one of the very top. And when we talk about schools, when we talk about engineering, I always feel like Caltech kind of ends up at the short end of the stick. People talk about, MIT, and they're looking at all of these top engineering schools. And Caltech, while their reputation is generally for like astrophysics or aeronautical engineering, and they actually have an incredibly comprehensive undergrad program in all of the engineering and sciences. And this is a school that it's difficult to get into, but if you're in there, every door will be open to you. And then my final one on this list, I really wanted to get back and give us a good example of a very urban campus. And this would be the University of San Francisco. This school is what we would consider medium sized. So if your students are more interested in that like 8 to 12,000 range, this is a really great option for them, particularly if they want to be in the city. It's not super far, it's easy to access. So like SFO Airport is close by and all of the different things that you might be interested in city living, but you also get a student experience that is very experiential. Despite the fact that they're a slightly larger school than a bunch of the other ones that we have been looking at, the University of San Francisco is big on getting their students out into the workforce right away. You have access to Silicon Valley, students who might be interested in going into business or going into the medical fields. The University of California at San Francisco's medical school is housed not far from there, and they will often take undergraduate students coming from the University of San Francisco. So if you're looking for something a little bit bigger and more urban, this is a great option because it has a connection to an area where students have the opportunity to go out and work right away. Students will do internships down in Santa Clara, in San Jose. It's got access to Cal Berkeley's campus. So when we're up there, we're talking about this. It's not just the fact that this is a school that is very urban based, that it is in a major city. It's that this school has connections to every other one of the major universities in the Bay Area. All right. So now the question is, as we go forward, how can you go find some additional schools? I've had a chance to highlight a bunch of schools across a variety of regions. It's a really fun for me. Like I said, I absolutely love this presentation because I really get a chance to kind of dive in on some of these schools and talk about what makes them interesting or exciting. If you want to do some more research for yourselves, I highly recommend ordering a couple of books off of Amazon. They're relatively cheap, but they're absolutely worth it. And the first one is The Fisk Guide to Colleges. Most of the schools that we just talked about can be found in here. And the thing we like about the Fisk Guide is it talks about more than just like size, academics. It gives an idea of what the campus feel is like. They try to talk a little bit about the culture of the school to give a student an understanding of whether or not this is the right place for them. The second one here is best colleges for B students. And this is not just like even very top end students to be looking at this is if you're looking at these kinds of schools, the schools that generally cater towards, I don't want to just say B students, but that is the average. If you are above that average, they'll oftentimes come in with a significant amount of merit aid. So if you're a student who is concerned about the cost of college or you're looking for ways to be able to afford some of these schools, looking at a school where you're above the average of what's going in would be a great way to do it. And this college book, The Best Colleges for B Students, does a really nice job of highlighting all the different types of schools and then what their range is for academics and what the average cost for most students attending is. Okay. And the third one on this list, this school, they actually are currently publishing this one online as well, but it's The Colleges That Change Lives by Lauren Pope. This book has had a new iteration pretty much every year since I think 2006, but they're constantly updating it because they try to highlight, similar to what we just did, some of these schools that offer unique, quirky programs or places that you might be interested in. Okay. The third thing on here, and you guys will be able to either screenshot this or take whatever you need, is the map I showed you at the very beginning of this is actually an interactive map. So if you want to go take a look and just scroll over, each one of the little dots on that original map correlates to a college. And this is the link that takes you directly to that college map. So you can actually go play with it, see what schools are where. So like, hey, I think I want to be in Chicago. You can actually run your mouse over top of the area of Chicago and you'll see all the different colleges listed and it'll give you direct links to their websites. So it gives you a little bit, it's a more fun way to do this by region if you really want to get out and take a look at things. And the final one is most of you offer, your guidance counselors are a wonderful resource. Additionally, a lot of you will have access to either something similar to Naviance or SCORE or College 360 through your college, through your high schools. And this will give you an idea of what the average student from your high school applying to these schools what their academic looks like, who's been admitted, and it really will give you a deep dive to understand what might be a good fit for you and where students have been successfully admitted. All right, I just talked for a very long time. So I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to ask any questions. I know we had some that came in advance of the session, so we'll get to those as well. Um, in the meantime, if you would have any questions that are specific to tonight's presentation or need anything, you can please reach out. The QR code at the bottom will take you to our consultation form. So if you guys would like to do a free 30-minute consultation with us, you can set that up directly through the website.
Thank you, Katie. We did get a few questions.
Perfect.
The first is, how many schools would you recommend applying to? Is there a certain amount that's too many?
Well, the too many really comes into each individual student's needs and desire. Because remembering, as we're doing this, depending on what your students are looking at, you will fill out the Common App for most schools, and for some schools, there'll be an additional application, which is going to require you to do one standard 650-word essay. Then on top of that, each school is likely to ask you for a supplemental essay, so it's additional writing. For the general student, anywhere from like 8 to 15 schools, depending on what you're looking for. And you want to make sure you have a solid mix of target, safety, and reach schools. And that's going to be different for every student. We also have what I like to refer to as the super reach schools, and that's the one where anytime your admissions rate is under about 12%, we would consider those a super reach because no matter how good of a student you are, it's still unclear whether or not you would be admitted. But I'd say that sweet spot is somewhere between 8 and 15, and you really have to come down to the amount of work your student is willing to do, and they'll be able to take a look at all of that information and get an idea for how much each application is going to require when those applications open on August 1st.
Thank you. And then for students who don't know what they want to study yet, or maybe they're deciding between a couple of programs, do you have any recommendations for how they should go about researching and choosing which schools to apply to?
For that one, I always recommend looking at schools that allow you some flexibility. If you don't 100% know what you want to study, but you're like, I'm a math and science person, I would look for schools that offer a strong, robust program that aren't going to require you to declare a major until at least a year or two in. Most colleges won't let you completely go into a major until you're a junior, except at some of the larger schools. So if you're at a really big school, oftentimes whatever you go in as is what you need to stay as, and transferring majors is difficult. For all the schools we talked about today, there is a significant amount of flexibility throughout the first 2 years for students to explore and to decide what they might be excited about. I always tell students, pick whatever your favorite subject is and start there. So if you're really into history and English, start with that style and see what kind of majors can come out of it. And for most of these schools, you can go and search by department and take a look at what classes they're offering, what sounds interesting to you. The goal here long term is to be excited about what you're applying into as a major or what you're doing in college. Because if you're excited, you'll be more engaged. So, whatever really gets you going in terms of, I'm really pumped to study X, Y, and Z things, I want to be involved in these. That's how I always start with students is let's figure out what you're most excited to learn about because you're going to do better if you're engaged with the material and the major can come out of that.
Great. And then lastly, for students interested in athletic recruitment, do you need your coach to know other coaches at the schools that you're interested in, or does it not matter if they don't have those connections?
Sure. It's always a bonus. If your coach can call up the coach at the college that you're interested in, that will definitely help. However, it's not a requirement. Athletic recruitment is a lot about doing the legwork, putting yourself in front of the coach, reaching out to them to directly, making sure that the communication that you're having with them demonstrates the level of interest that you have. Coach, I'm planning to apply here. This is my top choice school. I would love to communicate with you more about this. On the back end of that, the coach also has to think that you'll be a good fit athletically for the program. But if you are persistent and thoughtful about it, and you're looking at schools that you really want to be at, if your coaches, whether it's high school, whether it's club, know them, it's a bonus. But at the same time, plenty of student athletes get recruited without having that personal connection between coaches and college coaches.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much. Those are all the questions that we have.
All right. Well, thank you. If anybody has any questions, you guys can feel free to set up the free consultation through the QR code, and this will be available to anyone who was here tonight. You'll receive a link to this in case you have any additional questions or wanted to re-listen.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Have a great evening, everyone.